What is up, everyone? Episode 108 with Rashauna Scott. We've been doing a lot of these episodes. I'm excited to have Rashauna on. She seems like a pretty cool guest. I was the one who screwed up our original interview because I actually had a bunch of stuff going on. But I appreciate you coming on now. Means a ton. And yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on, Rashauna. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. So real quick for my audience who doesn't know you, like just real quick, just tell them like what you've done in real estate, like where you're at, what's kind of like a little resume, if you will, just real quick.
Yeah, so I am an Illinois licensed real estate broker in the Chicagoland area. Also the founder of Flipping in Heels, which is an online community for women real estate investors. I'm also a real estate investor myself. My experience ranges from wholesaling, fix and flips, tax lien investing, buying homes, some short-term rentals, pretty much, mostly a lot of different areas in real estate. And I specialize in working with investors as well and selling multifamily and investment properties. So I guess that's a little blurb about me.
Love it. Awesome. So when you were just starting out in real estate, what were your greatest fears and how did you overcome them?
Greatest fears. I definitely went through a period where I lacked confidence, absolutely, because when I first got started out, I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I was just trying to figure it out. I was going to conferences, workshops, seminars, and I guess even at that point, I didn't feel like anyone would ever like take me serious. It was always that like limiting belief of who's going to maybe want to work with me, and things like that. And so I had to overcome that and like building up the self-confidence of just educating myself. And what I realized was that the more knowledgeable that I became in learning about real estate, the more confident I felt, in those rooms.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you feel like that was just like learning lessons? Like how could you have sped that up? Was it just you feel like you need to educate yourself and that would have made it easier? Or like what do you feel like you could have done maybe to like speed line getting over those fears quicker?
That's a great question. Definitely educating myself, and then probably having a mentor, right? Having someone to speak, life into me and to kind of encourage, that confidence, because it's not always easy, right? To build self-confidence. We all come from many different backgrounds, right? And so sometimes we just some people aren't born with it, right? And so you have to I mean, you have to, build it and figure it out. But having somebody in your corner, that's pushing you, coaching you, guiding you, mentoring you, encouraging you consistently, I'm sure that would have been like a hack at that point.
Yeah, I mean mentorship 100% seems I think that's the greatest thing I ever did was like getting mentors really early on. When did you start getting a mentor in your journey?
So, so luckily I did have a mentor early on, but it wasn't so I've had many mentors, right? And so I feel like I've had different mentors at different levels. And when it was time to go to another level, like I needed a new mentor, right? Essentially. So when I first started my first business in 2011, I had a mentor, I had someone who helped me with that. And then I didn't really have much success, but I learned a lot about the basic foundations and principles and of business, right? Things that I never knew before. And then I was able to take that into the next phase of actually getting my real estate license, working up under someone who I could learn from and things like that. And then from there going to another level where I was like, okay, I now want to focus on investments, right? And figuring out the investing side of real estate, and then going and investing into mentor there. So I'll say, I've had many mentors along my journey, but going back to just having again that person that was like continually, pushing me, that definitely would have helped in terms of if I just had someone even just saying that specifically, like, you know what, don't worry about, being the youngest in the room, only the woman in the room, or anything, don't worry about any of those things, but just focus on, educating yourself, and the confidence will come. I would feel like I would have, gathered that quickly. But that was definitely something that I had to just learn on and kind of figure out.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. So you started as a realtor, and then how did you start switching into real estate investor? I feel like I have a lot of realtors who follow me. I think a lot of realtors become realtors in order to become investors,
Hmm.
right? I recommend to most people that, like, if you want to be an investor, be an investor. If you want to be a realtor, be a realtor, right? You don't need to be an investor to be a realtor, and you don't need to be a realtor to be an investor, right? Um, but how did your mindset start shifting to being like, okay, actually being an investor is the right way to go? Or at least, I mean, you're still a realtor too, but like when did you decide that like investing was something you wanted to add to what you were already doing?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be an investor first, and I couldn't figure out how to be an investor. So being a realtor was just like secondary to that. I was, again, 18, 19, 20, very early on, and I was like, man, I want to be an investor, but it seemed like it was so out of reach. I didn't have anyone within my immediate circle, within my sphere, talking about investments. I didn't grow up, talking about investments at the dinner table. And so I had the mindset of investor first and early on. But yeah, I became a realtor by just by default, because I was like, you know what? Well, I can't figure out this investing thing. I don't have a ton of money. I'm just understanding what it means to have good credit. Like all these things I'm just figuring out. And I was like, well, I mean, I can go and take a class and take a test, like I can do that. Like, so that was actually how I became a realtor. And then I did leasing for about a year. And then I was like, well, this is not worth my time. Make a lot of money as a leasing agent. And then after that, I decided to go and invest in a real estate investing program, because I still had that desire to understand investing and become an investor. And I knew, again, right, you have to, you only can figure that out through learning and through educating yourself. So I went and joined an investor program. I was with them for a couple of years, learned a lot, had some experience. And then I went back after that and got my real estate broker's license after that.
Gotcha. Love it. But like, so you always wanted to be one. When were you like, okay, now I feel like I'm actually ready to do it? Like, what changed in your
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I invested into like a real estate guru program, and there was a community within that program as well. And again, the mindset was financial freedom, right? All of these buzzwords that we use, today. But that was always at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the mindset. And so I was like, okay, how do I get into investing? And so I joined this community. And within that community, I actually met people who were doing deals and raising money and things like that. And so that's actually how I got into real estate. My very first investment was I was a private investor in somebody else's deal. And then I started to like raise money for my own deals. And so, again, it wasn't necessarily like a mindset shift saying like, okay, now I'm going to become an investor after being a realtor, because like I said, I wanted to be an investor first. And I got those principles through reading Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was, like I said, like 17 or 18. And so that stuck with me, and it was like, okay, I got it right then and there. Like, okay, this is what I'm going. Like, and even before I read that, I always knew that I was going to be a business owner or an entrepreneur of some sort. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And then when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, oh, okay, so real estate is going to be my way. Like, it just made sense. It clicked. It was a no brainer. Like, okay, financial freedom, generational wealth, all the things. Okay, great. I can obtain that through real estate. And so, and through owning real estate. So, I got it early on. And then after that, it was really just a matter of the journey to get there. Because I was in school full time, I was working full time, and I was doing real estate on the side, and just trying to figure it out. Again, it just seemed like it was something that was so that it was difficult to obtain. It was out of reach, right? Again, being young, not having a lot of money, not having even when I was working like my very first job and having a desire to go into real estate, you're like, how am I gonna come up with this money? So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
I think it does. I think it definitely answers my question in a lot of ways. So, um, yeah. So, like, what were there a new set of fears when you started investing? Right. What type of investing did you start doing?
Really.
Right. Like, give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh, goodness. So, my biggest lesson in my early on investments is definitely lessons around partnerships. I had a number of different partnerships, some that went good, some that went not so good, some where we made money, some where we didn't make money, you name it. And I would say after each one, the fear was definitely like, do I want to do this again? Do I want to, keep getting into this again? It almost got to a point where I almost got out of real estate, and I was just like, you know what? There's no more good people in the world. Like, everybody's crooks. Like, everybody's taking advantage of each other. I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I don't want to be in this industry, but yeah, but yeah, so I would say that, the fears around all of that. Now fast forward to, talking back on someone, or talking back to someone, or talking back to my, younger self in terms of doing that differently. And people even ask me today, like, how do I feel about partnerships? And I still believe that partnerships can be a good thing, right? You can leverage other people, right, for other people's finances, credit, money, whatever the case, resources. Um, but you absolutely want to make sure that you have the right contracts, in place. You want to make sure you have the right language. You want to make sure, you sit down and you have a conversation with people first before you actually decide to go into business with them, all the things. And so definitely things that I'm much more cautious about, of course, now, I would say, having some experience, but yes, some of my fears, some of my greatest fears and biggest fears and biggest lessons came through partnerships. I will partner with contractors on different fix and flip projects, and I would say that was the majority of my partnerships was with contractors, because again, as a real estate agent, what I brought to the table was the deals, and the opportunity. So I could get deals off market. I have an eye for design. I think naturally, being a woman, and then also as a realtor, I can turn around and sell the property, right? And then most of the time, I would have a buyer before we even finish with the project, with the project as well. So that also brings value. And I really just needed someone to partner with to run the project, run the rehab side. That was something that I didn't necessarily care to learn. I feel like so many people in real estate, they're like, oh, I got to learn, everything, before I get started. And it's like, no, you don't. You can actually partner, and it's okay to not be an expert at everything. In fact, you won't be an expert at everything, And so early on, I was like, I don't even want to be. I don't care to be. I don't want to try to be. Like, and especially in construction, it's just one of those things where I don't think you are going to know all there is to know until you go through like the experience, right? Like in rehabbing, unless you grow up building houses, is no way to know all there is to know. So anyway, so yes, so to answer your question, yes, my biggest lessons were absolutely through partnerships when I started investing. My biggest fears, my biggest all of that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, partnerships are key, right? I think partnerships are like 100% necessary when doing real estate investing. I think you have to find the right partners. I don't think you can ever do it completely on your own. I feel like if you're doing fix and flipping, you're going to need a construction partner, You might need a private money lender, which is just another type of partner, right?
Mhm.
I have a partner in almost all of my different businesses,
Mhm.
almost every single different one, right? Obviously, you have to know how to choose the right partner. So, Rashauna, my question to you is, how does one choose the right partners that aren't going to screw them, make them jaded, that are going to actually be good, where your skill sets are different and you guys are aligning and all that? How do you choose the right partner?
Yeah, I think the great thing that you just mentioned is that the skill sets are different, right? So the very first thing that you need to do is identify your roles, right? Who's going to do what? Who's going to be responsible for doing what? And then also assign a dollar value to that, right? Is this amount of work worth 50% of the profit, 25% of the profit, 75% of the profit, right? Like, what does it take for you to reach, for you to go from A to Z in your business or in your partnership, and who's going to be responsible for what at every single stage, right? And that needs to be discussed up front, not just like, oh, I like you, you like me, let's go into business together. No, you have to, have these tough conversations. In addition to identifying roles, you need to also talk about the what ifs. You definitely want to talk about the what ifs, right? So what if you don't do your job? Right? What if I have to step in and do your job? Because regardless of, if you do it or not, like, it still has to be done. So what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that look like in terms of compensation? What does that look like in terms of our partnership? I think those are the biggest things that it's important to talk about, are identifying roles, and then what happens when people don't want to, don't do their job, and then also even an exit plan. Like, what happens if the partnership can just no longer move forward anymore? What would that look like? So it's definitely a matter of having those tough conversations up front and making sure that you're in alignment, with whatever, you want the outcome to be. So I would say, in terms of choosing a partner, if you can't even come to terms, on those things at the very beginning, then, there might not be somebody that's a good fit for you.
Sorry, I just realized I muted myself. 100% no, I totally agree. Do you have any business partners that's like, because like it sounds like you're almost talking about JV. Well, you're not only talking about JV partners, right? Like you're talking about people that you consistently use too, right?
Yeah, well, well, both. So both, right? So you have one-off partners, right? But then yeah, more so partnerships. But those could still be through JVs.
Right. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Um, okay, gotcha. So what so you're doing that. Talk about your first project. Was it a fix and flip?
Yeah, it was a fix and flip. I invested in somebody else's deal. They were raising like $10,000, and I was like, I'm a young broke college student. All I have is $5,000. Can I please invest in this deal? And she was like, "Yep." And so she allowed me to invest, and it was a condo flip in a rapidly growing, gentrifying neighborhood. So the values were good. Everybody was moving into this neighborhood. Like I mentioned, this was in like 2015, and so it was my first time investing and sitting back and not doing anything, and then getting a check, my money back, a couple months later with a little bit of interest on it, and that felt great. But in addition to that, one of my biggest takeaways from that opportunity was the fact that I got a chance to mentor hack. So because I was an investor, that allowed me the opportunity to show up to the project and to ask questions and to say, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? And I was learning about, okay, and because it was a condo rehab, that's when I first learned about like associations, and okay, if you're renovating a property, or if you have a pipe leak, what is the responsibility of the association versus what goes on the owner, and things like that. And I mean, I was like 22 or 23, and I was showing up, and I was just so eager to learn, because again, remember, I thought about real estate as this huge thing that, I was like when am I ever going to have the money to, figure out how to invest? But here I am, I had a little bit, I had a small amount, but it allowed me the opportunity to get that foot in the door and to learn, kind of side by side as if I was, the one doing that project myself.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. So cool. So then, when was your talk about your first project where like I guess you've never you didn't really ever manage the fix and flips ever because you always partnered up.
No, I wouldn't say ever.
Not a bad one,
Each,
probably.
each partnership was different. There were some that I didn't have to do as much management or as much involvement, and then there was some that I had to get in and take over total management. So yeah, I've had every end of the spectrum, I would say, in terms of like the management. And then, I don't have any partners today. I rehab everything, myself currently. So
Okay, nice. Why'd you stop using partners?
yeah, I mean, well, the last partnership, we just went our separate ways, and I haven't needed one since.
Okay, gotcha. But
Mhm.
now you're doing everything. Now you're managing fix and flips. You're now finding the deals as well.
Mhm.
Um, are you okay with that? Are you like happy doing that? I mean, you're not doing. I'm assuming you have a contractor at least, right, or a crew. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you with the hammer in there.
No, not at all. Yeah. So I have contractors. I think is good for you to have, and depending on what level or what volume of flips you're doing. Like I'm not doing flips at a volume of what I was doing previously. Largely, the first shift came to the market change, right? So I was doing, a couple flips per year at one point, but that has since slowed down. And I have many contractors. So I have contractors for different types of jobs, right? If I'm doing a full gut rehab or new construction, I'm doing something that's going to be a huge project, I have, a separate contractor for that versus just, maybe I need a couple units turned and things like that. So yes, I do have pretty much just, a Rolodex of contractors, and I encourage everybody to build one.
How do you
Right?
find a really good contractor? Because I feel like that's where people get screwed a lot of times, especially fix and flippers.
Yeah.
Is like, how do you find a really good contractor?
You absolutely want to get recommendations first and foremost. That should be at the very, very, very top of your list. You want somebody who has already done a good job for somebody else, right? And I mean, that's really it. Like, yeah, all of my contractors, I would say, have come through recommendations. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Nice.
Or
I
just,
love it.
even networking. If it's somebody that I meet that was not a recommendation, then I'm absolutely going to go and visit their jobs, take a look at their work, things like that. And then you're gonna ask certain conversations. I think there are certain things that you have to put in place though to make sure that you don't get screwed as an owner, as an investor, because like you said, that's where a lot of people unfortunately do get screwed is with the contractor piece. But if you do certain things, like for example, when I get a quote on properties, like I'm getting a labor only quote. I don't allow contractors to purchase materials or handle a material quote because the price is going to just be jacked way too high. So that's one thing. Two, definitely don't pay lump sums up front, right? Definitely make sure that you have contracts with these contractors. Like I feel like you ask them for a scope of work, and then or you ask them for a contract. Some of them you ask them for a contract and they'll send you a scope of work, and you're like, no, this is a scope of work, this is not a contract. Right. So again, being
Right.
very clear on what a scope of work is. It is a list of all the things that's gonna, get done, versus a contract actually saying what happens when this doesn't get done, right? This is when a project starts. This is when a project ends. This is when payments will go out, and things like that, right? So having that contract in place is going to be so important. I would say one of the biggest lessons that I have learned in building my real estate business and my career is the importance of contracts. Like I'm really doing anything with anybody without a contract. I actually had a attorney last year, so not even that long ago, literally in 2022, try to do a service for me, and he wanted me to send him a Zelle payment for like $2,000, and I hadn't even received a retainer or anything, and I was like,
Right.
what, and I just knew it was like shady, and then he ended up getting fired anyway. But
Right.
but yeah, so name it, like at the end, have those contracts, people. Please have those contracts, have them tight. I don't care, if somebody says like, oh, this is a lot, right? I mean, yeah, you can condense it, you can shorten it, you can make it where maybe it's not aggressive. Like me, for example, I did send a contractor a 13-page contract, and contractors don't want to deal with that or see that, right? So we actually went back and forth on the most important things in the contract and pulled it out and kind of altered it, right? But at the end of the day, man, have those contracts. Don't get into business without them, because I think that's going to be obviously your layer of protection. Like you said, the whole quote unquote getting screwed. The contract, should help prevent that. And if it doesn't prevent that, then at least, you have something to stand on legally if you have to go to court.
Right. Makes sense. So let's switch gears a little bit. I obviously found you off of social media, followed you on Instagram, all that stuff. What made you start like becoming so active on social media? How did you start realizing that that was really important for your real estate business? How did that realization happen?
Yeah, that happened around the time that Periscope was born. So, it was so cool, this brand new thing called live stream, right? Where you could click a button and now all of a sudden you're in somebody's living room in Germany, and you're like, oh wow, what's this thing, right? So then it was like, then it became um like creating that identity and understanding brand, and understanding that when you do go, turn on your phone and you click that button, who are you going to be, right? And it was seeing more and more of that, right? And people, when you would, if you, I don't know if you were, part of Periscope days, but when you would click on somebody's page or somebody's, video, you're essentially going for something, right? And in most cases it was to be educated, to learn, and things like that. And then I was noticing that there was a lot of folks who were online educating, and I had a passion for budgeting, financial literacy, things like that, credit, as well as real estate. But I didn't have, the real estate experience yet, so I didn't feel like I, earned the right to necessarily talk about it or teach about it. But I knew the foundations and the principles, and those are things that I was working on, because, again, while I was trying to figure out how to get to this real estate and become, this big investor, I knew like the basics. So that's what I would go online, and that's what I would share, and that's just what, what I would talk about, because it was a passion of mine. And then from there, I feel like I myself wanted to just get more niched with what I was delivering. Like I felt like the market for just overall financial literacy was so saturated. And so then I just tailored my content more towards real estate, and I was more intentional about learning real estate, right? And doing real estate. And like I said, investing into the program and showing up and doing the deals and investing with people and things like that. And then I was just documenting my journey. And I was just sharing what I was doing on social media. And then little did I know that is the thing that would have, attract my tribe.
I love it. What's been like how has it changed your business starting to become more active on social media, doing all of that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, 80 to 85% of my clients come through social media on the realtor business. So yeah. I wouldn't even say necessarily change. It grew organically as I just grew. So because I was documenting my journey and just, my experience in investing and what I was doing and what I was learning and the lessons I was learning and the failures I was making, when I finally decided to go back, so I started growing my brand in like 2015. And then in 2017, I got my license, and I posted on social media that I passed my license. I mean, that, that I got my real estate test, and I'm sorry, that I passed my real estate test, and I had my first client right away, right? Like, hey, everybody, I'm so excited. I passed my exam. Boom, I had a client. But that wasn't because that was my first time posting on real estate, about real estate on social media. I had already been posting. I had already been documenting my journey. I had already just been showing what I was doing. So people already associated Rashauna with real estate. And so it was something that just grew gradually as I continued to grow, right? As my business grew, as my brand grew, as I was continuing to document my journey, more people would come because they would see that's what I was doing, right? People want to work with who they see working.
I love it. And then, so how did you grow your social media? I know this might be like a really common question, but like, what's your advice for someone who's like, no, I want to grow my social media, get deals from leads? What would you like? What would be your first piece of advice there?
You have to figure out your ideal client and who you are talking to. And even before at the end, I would say, why are you on social media? That's the very first question that you need to answer. And only you can answer that for yourself. So if you're on there to socialize, then that's cool. If you're on there to intentionally get leads, okay. If you're on there to grow your business, okay. Are you on there to maybe keep up with family and friends? Okay. All of these things are great things, right? There's no wrong answer, but why are you on there? Right. And if it is business to grow, right, and to get leads, then I would say, okay, well, how are you going to get those leads? How are you going to attract those leads? How are you going to talk to those people? What type of content are you putting out, that speaks directly to them? So yeah, I would say that's what I would
Give
start.
us an example. Like, give us an example of just like one thing where you're like, okay, here's an example of where I thought about it. It's like, I want this type of client. And I actually forgot, what markets are you in?
I'm in Chicago.
Like I want people in Chicago who are specifically looking to buy. Like, how did you create content that was like tailored to them? Like, what's an example of that?
Yeah, so for Veterans Day, there was a lot of posts saying like Happy Veterans Day. And then I created a post talking about how to use the VA loan and how I can get a 4-unit with no money down. So, right. So I'm educating people with my content. And so I try to be unique in what I'm educating and how I'm delivering it. And yeah, just thinking about what other people aren't doing or what other people aren't talking about. How can I be different and think outside the box and attract clients in a different way than what everybody else is doing? Everybody else is posting like the just sold or just listed or whatever, but when you go to somebody's page, it just looks like a magazine, right? It just looks like an advertisement. Like people, that's not what gives people the warm fuzzies on the inside, and that doesn't help them buy into you. And so yeah, I think educating is selling. And so the more you educate people for free, the more they want to in turn do business with you.
I love it. I love it so much. And then, so yeah, so which platforms are you mainly focusing on? I mainly know you on Instagram. I'm curious, do you have a YouTube, or are you just going all in on Instagram, or like what platforms do you use?
Yeah, I'm all Instagram really. I have a Facebook just because I've had a Facebook forever, and that's a lot of family friends are
Yeah,
there. I do have a Facebook business page as well, and if you post on Instagram, it's automatically going over there anyway. So we just kind of keep that going. But yeah, I'm definitely mainly active on Instagram.
I love it. And then, so you're doing fix and flipping. You're also a realtor. Is there any other real estate investing? Are you doing any buy and holds? Are you like doing anything else?
Yep. So I hold currently as well. Again and again, as I mentioned before previously, I have done tax lien investing. I have done. I'm currently doing short term rentals as well. And then tax lien investing. So I've done tax lien investing as well.
Love it. So what are your goals? Like, you're doing all sorts of stuff. You're doing a ton of them. Like, is there like a goal for how many you want to own, how many you want to flip, how many deals you want to represent people on? What are your goals there?
Yeah, so I usually set a yearly goal for my team. So I have a team of 4 agents, and every year that goal increases or changes, or it looks different. I um have a goal of 100 units this year for my team. In regards to and that's just on on the realtor side for 2024. But next year, that could be different. The one of the things that you learn about in leadership is that things change, right? Things change, people change, goals change. Sometimes the vision changes. um I used to want to own all of these doors. So going back to even with that, right? Goals and vision changing. And I do not desire that anymore. I've shifted my investment strategy into purchasing mortgage notes. And so my focus is more towards leaning in that direction in terms of the goal. I mean, ultimately, I don't have an exact number in mind yet of what like my end goal necessarily would be with that. I don't know if I would have one, to be honest. But I think it's just for me, my investment strategy definitely has changed, and I think your investment strategy will change over time as well. When I talk to people and they're like, man, I want to be an investor. I want to get into real estate, or they're just like, I want to invest in real estate. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I don't know. I just want to be an investor, right? Because they see it, they hear it. It's a buzzword. It's a cool thing to do right now, and you need to, first and foremost, figure out what type of investor you want to be. What type of investment do you want to do, but also understand what is your investing personality, right? Like, are you someone that does have a high tolerance? Are you someone that is okay with opening a wall and having an additional $15,000 expense that you didn't prepare for? Is that going to make you go into a panic attack? Or are you just going to deal with it and say like, okay, it is what it is. We got to keep moving, right? Are you a person that maybe you don't necessarily like people? Then you probably shouldn't be a landlord, or you should highly consider hiring property management, right? And then that means you also have to factor that into your numbers. And so I say all that to say that there's so many different ways, obviously, in which you can invest in real estate. You have to understand that there are entry strategies to real estate and there are exit strategies to real estate, right? So if I say, oh, I'm a fix and flipper, or I buy and hold, that's the exit, right? That is what I did on the end, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how I got into the deal, right? The deal could have been a foreclosure. It could have been a tax lien. It could have been an auction. It could have been a subject to. It could have been a seller finance. It could have been, all of these different ways in which, you could have gotten into the deal. And so those are strategies to understand and learn and study, in themselves. But those are also different pathways that people can take.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, no, I like it a lot. So going on to yet another subject, because I'm just super, super curious about different things, right? Um, when like what is like the money goal? I'm also curious about that as well, just because like I like knowing where, because people have different lives, right? Maybe not even money if you feel uncomfortable with that, but just like is the what is the lifestyle goal, right? Like when has Rashauna made it? Because I feel like a lot of people have different views on that. Some people are like, I got $10 million in the bank. Some people are like, I'm making 100K passively a month. Like, what is the I've made it? And if you've already made it, like, have you already made it? Have you already reached that goal? Like, what is that to you?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm very close. And for me, it's absolutely a lifestyle goal for sure. I realized it last year when I didn't work as much during the summer. And then my numbers kind of stayed stagnant, in terms of volume, closings and things like that. But, we still ended the year on a good note, 56 closings, a couple million in volume. And so
Incredible.
it was a good year. And so, and volume is total transaction number, not necessarily GCI, which is income. But, we still ended on a good year. But what I realized was that during those months that I took off, I was like, man, like I really enjoyed my life. And I didn't necessarily take off, but I was still working, but I wasn't necessarily as much focused in the business. And I was like, I really enjoyed my life, regardless, how can I continue to keep this up? And my numbers don't stay stagnant, right? In fact, they continue to, go upward. And so for me, it's a matter of, building a business where you have processes and systems in place where your business can operate without you. And we hear this time and time and time again, right? Like this is, there's not anything about, it's what the oldest trick in the book, right? Where you're building a business to scale, or you're building essentially what is your ideal life. And like you said, that looks different for everybody, but for me it truly is time freedom, right? And so when I say I believe that I'm almost there, I do plan to take off 5 months this year, and still hit our numbers and hit our goals, and I'll still support my team really just from wherever I'm at. I love to travel, so I'm sure I'll be traveling. I enjoy speaking, so I'm sure I'll still be speaking. I, will be able to invest from wherever I'm at. I'll be able to lead generate, and have clients and things like that. So I think for me, it's being location, independent, right? Not necessarily have to be in a certain place at any given time. And so what it's really about is building the processes and the systems and the tools and the softwares and the business and having the right people in place to get there. And I spent a lot of time building. I would say that probably the past year and a half, I've been just building, right? Documenting processes and systems, and just figuring out, just the best ways to duplicate and scale and the best ways to support people. So so to answer your question, I think I'm pretty close, and then I'm sure
5 months is pretty darn cool. That's pretty up there, right? The most I've ever taken off is a month, and stuff was working out. People were making money, but I don't think I could go 5 months. So
yeah.
kudos to you. That's super awesome.
Yeah.
What are the businesses that would be self-running? Would it be like, it sounds like your brokerage? Would also fix and flipping still happen? Like where is your main money maker out of all of the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so currently my main money maker is definitely through my real estate sales business. So the brokerage business, helping buyers, sellers, investors. I have another stream of income through Keller Williams, through it's called like profit sharing, my agent downline essentially, which is really cool. They actually let you pass that down for like a couple of generations, and it's a really cool just additional stream that they compensate you for, helping grow the company. So that's a stream. And then my properties, right? My current properties, and then the properties that I will, continue to acquire, as well as the same thing as I mentioned, in terms of notes. So for me, it's a matter of creating as many passive income streams as possible. When I look at opportunities or think about new opportunities, whether it's like just investments and what have you. The first thing that I'm thinking about or that I'm looking at is definitely not how much money I can make, but how much work is it going to take? And so, people ask me all the time, like, will I start a property management company, or why haven't I started a property management company? Because it would be, very successful. I have all the clients already, right? All of my clients, the majority of my clients are multi-unit buyers, right? Whether they're in state, out of state, whatever. Like, I have a Rolodex of multi-unit clients. And so that's something that I would be able to get clients for right away, and it would be easy. But is that the life that I want to create for myself? Right? Is that what I see for myself? Is that, in terms of what all it takes and, what all it entails? And I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be on a beach and someone is calling me upset because their building is on fire. I was like, I don't think I want
Right.
to deal with that. So
I love it. No, it totally makes sense. So we're heading towards around the end of our interview. I always end the interview with a couple different questions, and one of them is, Rashauna, if you could go back to yourself, you're just starting to be a realtor. What would you say to yourself then, knowing everything that you know now?
what would I say then? Mm. Oh, probably like just getting your systems and your database like in order, and being consistent with like email blasts and things like that. That's something that I didn't really get good at until I hired somebody to do it. It's just not my stream. um but I think, that's something that as a brand new agent, like if you don't have a lot of time, I'm sorry, if you don't have a lot of business, that's okay, right? Because you have more time than you have business. So in that time, I would absolutely say take the time to get your database in order, and then the marketing that you want to send out, right? Like, so are you sending out monthly newsletters? Are you sending out this or that or whatever, right? Like getting those things in order so you can start touching your people as often as possible, and consistently.
I love it. What's your favorite book, or what's the book that's affected you? Well, I would say this. What's the book you've given out the most?
Oh, good question. Giving out, man, I've definitely encountered some really great books in my short time here on earth. However, I read Who Not How about a month ago, and I'm just like, this book just changed my life. I read it twice. Well, I listened to it twice, within 1 week. And it just makes total sense. It's about, total life delegation, not just, in business, but in life. And I was already there, right? Mentally, get headed in a direction of like, I want to take off 5 months and all the things. But then even on top of that, just being a natural entrepreneur and business owner, like you're going to have, as they talk about in the book, all of these different ideas. And man, it's just a phenomenal book. But yeah, it changed my life for sure. And I've told anybody that can listen, anybody that would listen, I've told them about it for sure. And everyone has said, everybody have recommended it. I've had at least like 5 people that I can think of on one hand that have read it. Literally, I just read it a month ago, and all of them, and it's an easy listen. It's like a 4-hour listen on Audible, but at least 5 of them have come back like, yo, this is an amazing book. So
It's my it's one of my favorites. It's my top 10 for sure, Who Not How, just in terms of like the mindset shift of like, why am I doing anything? Why am I not
yeah,
just finding a person who knows how to do this already instead of
yeah,
me trying to learn everything?
I've hired
Uh,
2 people since reading that book.
yeah, it's smart. It's a good book.
Mm.
Cool. So what else are you, how can my audience help you? Like what would be like really ideal for your business? What are other things they can do? Where can they reach out to you? What stuff can we plug? Like all that good stuff.
So you can find me at Rashauna Scott everywhere, across every platform. I have a number of events that are coming up. So all of my events are posted on my social media. So if you want to share a flyer or anything like that, that would be great. I
Where's the
definitely
next
would.
event?
Yeah, definitely would appreciate the support. And then if
Where's the next
anybody,
event?
my next event is actually in Kentucky in February 3rd. Yep, it's called Leading Ladies Extreme.
Why Kentucky?
Huh?
Why Kentucky?
Oh, that's where the host lives.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm a
You
speaker.
speaking at that event or is it your event?
No, I'm speaking at that event.
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Yeah, no, I
That's
know.
why I was so confused. I'm like, wait, like, don't you live in Chicago?
No, I know nothing about Kentucky. I actually had an event today here in Chicago that I spoke at on social media for real estate professionals. But in terms of my own event, I'm actually hosting, I'm doing a tour in March for Women's History Month. It's called Lady Landlord Tour. I'm going to Atlanta, DC, Miami, and Chicago. So if any of your listeners are, in either of those cities, that would be great. Pull up and
if you add Denver to that, I have a meetup that we'd love to have you as a guest speaker. So
I love
if you're interested, you could come through it. My partner in the setting up the meetups is also a woman, so you guys can go all on about Lady.
Love it.
Love it. Cool. Well, Rashauna, I really appreciate you so much. Are there any last words you have for my audience? Just in general?
Well, just thank you for having me. This was a great podcast. You asked some great questions, so thank you. Hopefully, you guys had an opportunity, to learn something, or get inspired. I would definitely say, when it comes to social media or even just, investing, like document your journey, show up and just continue showing up. And whatever it is you're trying to do on the investing side, on the agent side, continue showing up. You never know who or what, is waiting for you when you get there. That's what I tell people. 90% of success is showing up. And I feel like that has definitely aided in my success as well, because I have a phenomenal network, right? Not to sound cliche, right? But we all know your network is your net worth. And so I would say definitely show up to those events, those networking events. You say you have a meetup, right? So show up to these events when you say, you want to be this person. Make sure you're showing up as that person in the world and showing up and connecting with people who are already doing what you want to do.
100%. Guys, please reach out to Rashauna, especially on Instagram, but like any of those places. But Instagram is how I met her. She responds to her DM. So DM her, send her some love. Say like, oh my God, I love this podcast. Send the podcast. Send like your favorite part. Say the part that you love the most.
Yes.
Send her a bunch of love. Tag her and stuff. Tag me and stuff. And yeah, like send her deals in Chicago, right? Send her, like, if you have social media questions, you can probably hit her up too. But definitely give her a lot of love right now for coming on the podcast. Rashauna, you were an amazing guest. I loved it. Stay afterwards if there's a few questions I want to ask you just real quick afterwards too. And guys, next week, it'll be a normal schedule, 8:15 a.m. PST. We're doing Cash Flow and Coffee. We'll answer all your questions there. And then next week, we're going to do Scorched of Fears, exact same time, 5 p.m. PST. Rashauna, I appreciate you so much. We're out. Scorched of Fears. Let's freaking go.